All right, welcome back to As Told by You. Today we have an old friend of mine on the podcast. We've never sat down in this particular kind of venue, but we have known each other for a very long time. Jacob Carter, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jacob is a filmmaker, I guess, videographer, if you want to use the old the old parlance. Jacob, talk about what is the importance of storytelling in an organization, especially somebody that thrives on kind of getting your story out, and your currency is your story. What is the importance of storytelling?
Well, something that I've always known and believed is that if you're not telling your story, someone else will. So a lot of it from at least from like an organizational perspective is figuring out how can you brand what your organization is about, who you're helping, and who you are. And so in the value of storytelling too is that if we can connect emotionally with someone, other than just blurting out information for what people should think and believe about our organization, if we can actually tell a story where there's conflict, where there's resolution, the value of storytelling really is much more impactful than just data or just facts. And so at least for me currently in the role that I have in my organization, it's so powerful when we're dealing with the stories of kids and their lives changing, and where I'm at with education. And so kind of how that's always been for like me for the past, like we've said before, like 17 or 18 years is how can we emotionally connect with our audiences through telling a story to where it makes them want to take action or have a response. So
yeah, what is that? So, and to point out, you work with Erskine Charters, which is the largest charter school district in the state, correct?
Yeah, it's the fastest growing, and it's probably the fastest growing school district in the state now. Like our goal has always been to have the best and highest quality schools across all counties of South Carolina. And we actually have a student in every single zip code of South Carolina. So we are massive and we're growing. And so my role at the Charter Institute at Erskine is my role is actually called the Executive Director of Creative Projects, which is a fancy way of over the course of the past few years, and my title changing a little bit, of saying like that I produce a lot of the media content, which is like, videos and photos of events, and also helping with the creative aspect of how we throw events, do documentaries as well, and the premieres of those, and how we can best serve our schools. It's like a subsidiary of our larger communications department, which I will say is probably the most extensive communications department of any educational entity that I've ever been a part of.
Well, and I think for an organization like yours, which is basically you're trying to tell the story of charter schools and understand kind of, what the benefit to the kids is of having this, and all of those little stories, all of those big stories and little stories that go through it, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes a big difference. And I know you and I have been kind of, our careers have been paralleling each other a little bit over the years. Tell me how you got into it. How did you get into making videos originally?
So whenever I was in high school, I took broadcasting class at Lexington High School. And that was just an easy way to get to know about photos and videos, and I was just honestly just kind of having fun and doing silly videos with other high schoolers at the time. And really kind of what happened when that was going on, once I got out of high school, I wanted to get a major in business administration, but I quickly switched that to media production just because I was just having fun, like shooting a lot of videos, taking photos. And quite honestly, at that time, I shot my first wedding in 2008 just for a relative. And I was like, oh, this is something I can do just to make a little bit of extra money while I'm in college. And growing up, like in my family, and my dad's he's always been an extremely hard worker, and he's instilled that into me, and also done a lot over the past 20 years as far as being an entrepreneur. So that's kind of how I thought about that whenever I started shooting wedding videos and trying to advertise myself, all while I was still in college. So after that first semester being in business admin, I switched to the media productions department with a minor in public speaking. And once I was getting out of let me back up just a little bit. While I was still in college too, I was interning with a media production company, and we actually shot a lot of really cool stuff for United Way, Dartmouth Medical School. It's just some Nephron Pharmaceuticals and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of my time at USC, I was actually shooting my first ever documentary, which is a feature-length documentary on homelessness in South Carolina. And so after I graduated, I was still doing stuff with this small production company, kind of on an as-needed contractor basis, while also essentially just freelancing, because whenever I got out of college, I didn't really want to have a job. I wanted to keep doing what I was doing. And I probably should back up to 2008, like we were just talking about right before we got on the podcast, because that's when I met you, when we were both involved, when I was involved with Young Life at the time, and you had done some work for the Young Life golf tournament. Mm-hmm. We were all when we were all still shooting on HDV tapes.
The Brewer Homes golf tournament.
Yeah. And it was great. It was a good fundraiser, and but that was in 2008. But anyway, whenever I got out of college, I had just finished my documentary, and at that time, as I was still freelancing and building a business, I actually decided to live in the halfway house that was the main subject of the documentary where I was at, because I was trying to mentor homeless men at the same time, which is hilarious because I had met my wife in 2013, and she would always introduce me when we started dating as her homeless boyfriend, which is hilarious. And so anyway, when I started dating Rachel, we actually connected because when we were on the Horseshoe, when I met her, she was actually playing around with like a Nikon D500, I think, or something at the time. Mm-hmm. And she needed to go photograph her first wedding in 2013. And she didn't know how to use it. So we just kind of hung out and got to play around with that on the Horseshoe. And soon after that, I moved out of that halfway house, and we dated for about a year and a half. And I was still shooting lots of wedding videos, and she was trying to learn more about that. And so that's kind of when we really started doing that together.
Yeah.
And then around 2015, we got married, and we really kind of went all in together on our wedding photography and videography business. And so in 2000, there's been a few jobs I've had in the meantime, but always kind of been an entrepreneur and a business owner. My wife at that time, when I met her in 2013, she had just started teaching. So while she was still teaching, me and her were both running our business together and figuring out how we could serve clients, tell stories for her, mainly through weddings. For me, also working with commercial clients like in the wine country. I did some time in the firearms industry, which was really interesting. Lots of ministry related stuff too. Mm-hmm. All of that just kind of made me just really passionate about this skill set for me, which is, as a nerd and really technical and very specific, I could actually use to help businesses, but also get people to have emotional responses. And so obviously another one that you're probably pretty familiar with in the past few years, or like within the past 5 or 6 years, was that documentary me and Zach Steinhauser worked on, which was Purple Haze.
Purple Haze.
And that's kind of just really, that's kind of like a really compressed version of like the past 20 years.
And you provided me the opportunity to go to Brazil, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't go.
Yeah, I couldn't go. At that time, I was taking a trip to Israel, which was interesting because that was the week before the lovely March of 2020.
Oh, yeah. We got back from Brazil like February 26th. Like right before everything went downhill.
So when I got back from Israel, they shut the country down too. So I'm trying to block 2020 out of my mind.
So that's awesome, man. That's a great story. A lot of interesting questions in there. What is that like running a business with your wife? Talk about that a little bit.
Oh gosh, so
I know because I ran a business with my wife, so I was just curious.
There's great things about it, and there's difficult things about it. And I mean, for us together, it's so wild to see what's happened over the course of realistically the past 10 years. We shot our first wedding together that Rachel organized in 2015, right after we got married. And over the course of the past 10 years, there's been a lot of friction, a lot of hard things, but also a lot of good things, because she's done a good job of marketing us as a couple that comes and photographs or photographs and videos a wedding together. And probably it's been really good for our relationship and just understanding how each other tick, but also for other couples that we would photograph and video weddings with, or photograph family portrait session or whatever that might be. It's been really good for us to just kind of get them excited about what life looks like when they're married. So that's kind of a big thing for Rachel, is we market ourselves knowing that it's really important that we capture your wedding day, your portrait sessions, whatever, really high quality, but we care more about people's marriage than their weddings.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been a really interesting thing for us. And so working with her has been amazing. I think she's one of the strongest and most patient person for me, as someone who can be really disorganized and scatterbrained, and also really intense when I'm working. But she's done a really amazing job of taking our business to the next level, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't know if this happens to you. I run across couples or brides that we worked with sometimes 15 years ago, 16 years ago, still married. And I look at that as a compliment to me somehow.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, like we had a good track record of picking couples that stayed together. And I don't know. I mean, we didn't do it. They picked us. But I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, it's interesting for us now because we're at a point where our business is so successful thanks to like Rachel and the way that she's branded us, that we do attract the right clients. And we're at a point now where we can be selective about understanding like that the clients are going to be someone that need our services and that that can value what we can bring to them.
Yeah.
And so it just attracts the right people, you know?
We were working at an event in September for Toby's Place. You know, Toby's Place.
Yeah.
It's at Oliver Gospel Mission. And this happens to me every once in a while. One of our brides from 2009, 9, came up to me at the golf tournament. She's like, "Oh my God." You know, it's like, "Hey girl." And so I couldn't remember her name, but I remembered her face. And as soon as she told me her name, everything clicked into place. I remembered her husband's name. I remember where the wedding was. I remember where the reception was. And so I asked her if her husband was there. And she's like, "Yeah, he's over there. He's in a foursome." And so I went over to speak to the husband, and he was with this teenage boy. I was like, "Oh, yeah, good to see you, man. You know, how's everything going?" And I, with a start, realized that this teenage boy was their kid, right? He's 15 years old. Yeah. It's hard to believe that I have, you know, connections that go back that far. But that's the amazing thing about doing wedding videography, especially, is because you make those connections with people. Like, you're their only wedding videographer that's ever happened, right? Yeah. You can have hundreds of couples that you've worked with.
Yeah, most people only get married one time.
That's it.
Most
you're
people.
Only one.
And what's really funny is I actually got a call a couple of months ago. This is hilarious. Not hilarious. A couple that I shot their wedding video in 2013, and their house burnt down.
Oh no!
And so they lost their wedding film, but thankfully I still had it, and I sent it back to them.
Right. I
sent it to them, and it was just interesting that after that long one, to your point, they were still married, but they also had they had a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. And it's wild to think that you do have relationships that go back that
and that
far.
came after the wedding, right? So you know, you have to, it's the idea of legacy is just so important, right? And I think part of what we do in the idea that I can make great commercial content for people, but I love making something that's got legacy. I love making something that lasts, that documents something that's really happening.
Absolutely.
You know? That's like what attracts me to it completely, is that part of it. So talk about the Charter Institute at Erskine. Talk about what drew you to that, and what kind of stuff do you do there?
Sure. So I feel like God is funny because just like my career and like just my trajectory of getting there was really hilarious. So just a lot of like stumbles and blocks and this, that, or the other. So from 2016 to 2018, I was working at the South Carolina Baptist Convention. Mm-hmm. You're aware of that because we both know Laura Gopp there. Yep. And so so as I was there, I was doing something interesting, which was serving the almost 2,000 churches on a case-by-case basis for what they needed from a media perspective and comms perspective.
That's a lot.
Now, the South Carolina Baptist Convention has an insanely good creative team now. It's changed a lot since I left. But after I left in 2018, I did a lot of little things, but mostly just running my own business and just trying to have commercial clients here and there, but mostly trying to help Rachel continue to build the wedding business. Because at that time, she was still teaching. And then in 2019, I decided to start teaching at Ben Lippen, just because I wanted to just kind of pour back into those kids. They had a part-time position that was available for teaching digital media and photography. So as I was doing that in 2019, I joined some business referral group, and there's a guy who couldn't do a gig, and he was telling me about it, and it was the first ever awards banquet for the Charter Institute at Erskine in 2019. Cool. Mm-hmm. And it was upstairs at the top floor of the Truist building, which was the Capital City Club at the time.
Yep.
And so I went there. It was amazing. It was exciting. It was in the ballroom, so it was super packed. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of cameras there. They did a really good job of getting the word out, and the governor was there too. It was a really big deal. So I was just there to shoot a highlight video. And so I shot that highlight video, turned it around, and they kind of kept talking to me more, asking me back for one-off projects here and there. Fast forward, 2020 happens. And so Ben Lippen, they went virtual for a little while, and I taught virtually, which was, I hated it. It was so hard. It was so difficult. I loved my kids, though, and we were able to figure some things out, but that was just a stress, I think, for every teacher, for every parent. But whenever that happened in 2020, I got quite a few phone calls from the Institute, because what was happening was, even though lots of traditional school systems were shutting down, somehow charter schools were able to pivot. They were able to actually teach their kids and keep up to their high standards. Because by the very nature of charter schools, they are built to where if they don't outperform their local districts on a multi-year basis, they're shut down. So there's already high performing. There's already a lot of pressure to make those schools really good. So when COVID happened, it put a lot of eyes on them as far as what they can do to perform. So in 2020, they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, Jacob, we want to put you on an actual retainer 1-year contract to tell the stories of our schools." Because at that time, I believe we had 14 schools, and there was some and even regardless of 2020, in that fall, there's going to be some ribbon cuttings, some groundbreakings. They were trying to move quickly, and they're like, "We can't have this gap where our story's not being told." And at the time, there was this intern, Ashley, who was there, and she was essentially running the comms department, and she was 20 at the time. And I met with her, met with our superintendent, Mr. Cameron Runyon, and the COO, Mr. V, and they're like, "Okay, let's do that." So they put me on a monthly retainer, and that's how I started just literally crisscrossing the state to where these charter schools were, because they're all over the state of South Carolina, and telling the stories of kids, like testimonial videos, marketing videos, just event videos and photos, and eventually getting to be kind of one of the head people responsible for putting on our awards banquet when we started doing them in person again.
It's impressive, the awards banquet, by the way.
Yeah, and what's really funny, at the end of my contract, my 1-year contract in 2021, we had an awards banquet. COVID was still an issue for us. We did a virtual awards banquet, and I traveled and took pictures and video of every single nominee, which was, it had to be 40 some odd students, 20 some odd teachers, and volunteers as well. And this was all over the state. I had to capture each of them, and we had to do a virtual awards banquet. Yeah. And then thankfully in 2022, we went back to being in person, and it seems that that's always the best and most fun thing we do every year, and the biggest thing, because this is recognition that teachers, volunteers, parents, and kids just don't don't normally get. And so we're always really excited to just showcase like the impact of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because the tedious work of what every department at the Institute does over time, it's all pushing towards that, which is like, impacting families and kids.
Yeah. COVID was an interesting time for video companies because we were all of a sudden very needed.
Oh yeah.
So it had been a nice to have before COVID and then became a necessary thing. And I think most of us probably traveled all over gathering stuff that couldn't be done in person.
And it's funny, ironically, because in the event industry, I'll tell you in one day, Rachel and I, like, we lost about 5 figures of value projects from weddings. So easily. In one day, we lost a lot of money. So it was kind of funny at the time, like, because we're both entrepreneurs and we kind of learned to pivot. I actually started doing blue collar work and started cutting down trees and doing landscaping. I hired a few guys while Rachel was started doing like some document stuff at a law firm.
Right.
Just while we were still trying to build our business and figure out how to pivot. But I'm very thankful to have connected with the Institute at that time because it's kind of crazy. COVID was not a good thing, but the effects of COVID actually gave the Institute more visibility than ever could have been imagined.
Yeah, it's anything like that is categorically tragic. I mean, it was a rough thing for us to all have to go through, right? Mm-hmm. There were some bright sides, that you just had to pull some brightness out of it. You had to extract some of that. And I will say we were still firmly in doing weddings in 2020, and I think we might have done 10 weddings in 2020, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of backyard weddings, a lot of like, mom and dad's house on the lake kind of weddings, where it was going to happen in a big venue or it was going to happen in a church. And then we just pivoted to it,
Yeah.
Now I will say during 2020, we did at least 2 weddings that I know of. One in May, if you can believe it, which like, that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
It was in Bishopville, and it was like it never happened. It was like 320 people shoved into a church. It was like 300 people at the country club, like they were just not acknowledging.
We had a few weddings like that. Like we went to one in South Georgia in June, and it was like, COVID didn't exist.
It's like, we just go out in the country and there's no COVID out here. So, it's totally fine. But, and as a business owner, I had 2 or 3 employees at the time, and I'm like, I got to make it work. I got to keep paying these folks,
Yeah, you have to.
Their families depend on me being able to figure it out. And we ended up doing a lot more work in virtual. So like we got a live streaming setup, started doing a lot of live streaming, to really learn the live streaming setup. I figured out that one of my employees had some experience doing switching for his church. And so he took on our live streaming, and we just started doing annual meetings and board meetings and, training and all kinds of stuff that we had never done before COVID. It just sort of all bubbled up.
Yeah, I feel like this is general for most things, like professionally and in life. When something hard or unexpected happens, I think it kind of awakens something in you to figure out you got to pivot and shift.
You got to.
You have to, and I think like that's where the best amount of growth can come as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'll tell you the other interesting thing that you brought up is the South Carolina Baptist Convention. So I did. This is back at a time when we was just me. But I did the Janie Chapman videos for 3 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how long I did it. 3 years, I think. But they sent me to, I went to Cleveland. I went to Detroit. Went to Staten Island with the college group after hurricane, and it was all just me. It was just me, me and my camera in a backpack, just getting on an airplane, because and some of those experiences were really amazing. Like going around Detroit with a group of pastors from South Carolina, looking at the different church plants in Detroit, and we got to go to all the little areas of Detroit. But you moved into that job as I was moving out of that, doing that project. You started taking on Janie Chapman, I guess, after I stopped.
Yeah, and I remember traveling to quite a few places in South Carolina and out of South Carolina.
Yeah.
I did that. I did something really similar with visiting church plants in Boston for one of their state mission offering videos. And it was interesting. You see, and I mean, pastors are even now, like I feel like pastors are kind of a lot like school leaders and vice versa, because they have such an investment of what it looks like to transform their communities through their church or through their school. And so it was really neat to see that and be a part of that and know that what you're doing to tell that story is going to be impactful for that with the Janie Chapman Mission Fund, for like getting funding and getting support on their churches.
Some of the first experiences I had with learning that storytelling can lead to fundraising. It's like it's not just frivolous.
Yeah,
it can actually lead to better fundraising, and donors come sort of get attached because of the emotional stories that you tell. Which I think is really interesting, and it kind of shows a progression, I guess, that Baptist Convention is similar to charter schools in the way that the stories are the currency. Like the output of what we do is creating these amazing stories, you know? And so, I got to see and do a lot of things with the Janie Chapman Fund that I wouldn't have done otherwise, got to kind of hear a lot of stories from all around the country, which was really, really interesting, really kind of, opened everything up. And I think it's interesting too, that Tony, Sharp, who, worked at the Baptist Convention at the time, as, Tony used to work with Charlie Branham, who I started doing wedding videography with.
Yeah.
And Tony was working with Charlie when I met him, and then moved over to the Baptist Convention. And then Tony suggested me for that Janie Chapman job when it came open. But it's such a small community. It's like everybody that's in this community, we are all just kind of circulating in the same circles.
And I mean, relationships are so important to maintain.
Yeah.
And just so, because you never know how things are going to circle back around, and you always want to make sure that you're being generous with who you are and what you can resource to other people, because it can always come back around to you eventually.
Yeah. Well, and we had referenced the Purple Haze documentary. So you were working with Zach Steinhauser making a Purple Haze documentary in 2019, 2020. And so Zach and I had known each other because I had worked with Wally on doing videos for Winger's Nursery for all those years. And Wally gave me a call one day, and he said, "Look, my son wants to make a documentary. I would like for you to help him." So he said he wants to do this interview with a lady who's got purple martin nests on her property. He said, "Would you go out with him and just make sure he knows what he's doing," and all that stuff. So that's how I met Zach. So he was probably 23 or 4 when that happened, something like that. And who knew all of those years later that I'd run into him again with the Purple Martin thing. So he called me. I'm thinking it was probably December of 2019 to say, "Hey, it's one of those calls that you go, well, I don't know." He said, "Hey, would you be able to go to Brazil with me?"
Yeah.
And I said,
"That's a fun thing to hear on the other end of the phone."
I was like, when? And he's like, sometime in February. I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know." And he's like, "Well, come over and take a look." So, he was going to pay me, which was great, and pay for my trip and all that kind of stuff. And but I wasn't aware at that point of y'all working on that documentary for as long as you had. But he kind of laid it all out for me, where we were with it and all that stuff. And that was a crazy trip. I mean, it was an amazing trip. Headed out in the middle of the jungle and sleeping in a hammock, for 2 days. And
I mean, it's a third world country, right?
Well, certainly the part we were in was a third world country, certainly.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting. I actually first met Zach at a Young Life camp in 2008, and we've been best friends since then. And so he had always talked about this project as something he wanted to do, but never knew if we would ever have time for it. And so he took all these sticky notes and put them all over his wall of the place he was living at the time. He's like, okay, we can do this. And so it wasn't, Brazil was one part of that, but we also traveled to Erie, Pennsylvania.
Such a small part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Erie, Pennsylvania, Tucson, Arizona. He spent a lot of time in Alabama and North Carolina and stuff. We followed this bird everywhere. And what's really crazy too is like this was a 5-year project because we were doing this while we were still have jobs to do.
Sure.
And other ways of making income. It
was
absolutely.
Like,
it was very much a passion project, and it's kind of wild because it really turned into something that was impactful, and he's still like traveling and like showing it to Audubon groups all over the country.
Because look, I've seen it twice. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, I'm looking at the parts that I helped make, which I was like, all right, you know, I did a couple interviews with Zach talking about the trip, you know, all that stuff. But it's really good. Like you know, it's funny, you know, when he presented it to me, my philosophy on work like that has almost always been probably, right? So you go, hey, would you go to Brazil and shoot with me? And I go, well, probably. And, you know, let's talk about details, you know, we'll figure it out. When we got down there, we had an apartment that he had rented on Airbnb. And I found out the day we got there that we weren't staying in that apartment most of the time. We were heading out into the jungle. We were going to stay in the jungle most of the time that we were there. The apartment was a home base, so we were going to keep all our luggage and everything. And then we were going to go out. So we had to go to the market and buy me a hammock so that I'd have a place to sleep.
Man.
And so that was he did not disclose all that in that first meeting. And so I'm not sure I would have been so happy to go if I had known of it, but honestly, the hammock was fine. It was all fine. And our guide, we had, the country had assigned us a guide, that had to be with us all the time, Sandro. And Sandro said not to worry about the bugs, that the bugs don't come out, because it's wintertime. It was like February. So he said the bugs don't come out, so don't worry about it. And we went into the jungle with no bug spray, no cover, you know, we were outside, you know, it was wild. So, but anyway, I think it's so fascinating. I have not taken on a full-length documentary. I've never done anything longer than 20 minutes. I think we made a 20-minute film over the course of a year, but like, you know, have never taken on a documentary. Talk about a documentary. I mean, you've made how many now?
Oh, 7.
7.
7's a lot of them.
Good gracious. I mean,
I guess technically I'm working on the 7th, but
right.
But it's pretty wild. And so, I mean, doing that the first time about homelessness and following at that time, which was the story of a homeless crack addict who became a pastor. Something that's really wild about documentaries is the amount of time and energy and effort the filmmaker or the person running it has to have a relationship with the main subject or subjects.
Right.
And spending a lot of time discovering the story, because you can sit and interview someone for 2 hours, that's great, but then you have to kind of go back and deconstruct how to turn that into a story that makes sense, whether you need to go interview more people or have some archival footage or photos in a way that makes sense to the audience. Because one of my favorite quotes that I use all the time is that there's something called the curse of knowledge, where if you know everything about something, sometimes it's hard to put yourself in the perspective of somebody else who doesn't know
you can't
the story
really see it
and care to see it.
Yeah.
And so so I've made 7. I guess I could count the homeless one as my first. I was a pretty much half of the Purple Haze one. And whenever I got to the Institute as a full-time employee, because after that year contract in 2021, I went on full-time, I met a school in the Low Country called Royal Live Oaks Academy of the Arts and Sciences. And at the time, a woman and her husband moved down to the Low Country because they saw a need in what was called the Corridor of Shame, which is the I-95 corridor, where just along either side of I-95 are just rural communities that do not have good educational opportunities.
Right.
So they wanted to plant their feet in Hardyville, South Carolina, and start a school. And this was 13 years ago is when they started this school. And so the request was made from our leadership, let's tell the story of Royal Live Oaks and these two and this couple. And so that documentary was about 45 minutes long, spent a lot of interviews with that couple and the people at the school, but also just going through obscene amounts of footage and photos to try to construct and visualize the story.
Yeah.
And what's been really great about that is we took that documentary, and it's actually been a piece for that school to show to their staff at the beginning of every school year, to just kind of understand like how far the school's come. Because now they have a building that's massive, with a elementary, middle, and high school.
Wow.
They have some pretty high academics. They're outperforming their local district, and there's a waiting list for their school.
Yeah,
they went from just a couple that came down and saw a need to actually transforming that community because of that school. Like there's been neighborhoods that have popped up around the school. There's been a lot of traction as far as like career availability in that community because of that school. So they're really transforming not only the kids and families' lives, but like the whole community. And I made that documentary actually, sadly, right before the husband founder did pass.
Oh.
So Dr. Wicks, she has always been the school leader. She will say that her husband Les Wicks is her knight in shining armor, and he was a businessman and a developer who helped kind of architect the school and secure the land and the loans and all that stuff, and just was kind of her cheerleader, which was kind of a great way to frame that as a story that you care about.
Oh, sure.
When it comes to building that school.
It becomes universal.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that was the first one, and we've had a bunch more I could probably talk way too long about, but probably the other one that was a big deciding one for us was Success Has No Zip Code, the story of Coach Willie Jeffries. That one was a huge deal for us because we had been a pretty major part in helping get a school in Orangeburg off the ground that was named after Coach Willie Jeffries.
Right.
It was a very big deal to have a lot of buzz around it from the communication side, which was mostly, like I said, my colleague Ashley, and just from a media side getting a lot of attention over why it was so important to tell the story of Coach Jeffries and why this school aligns with his values. So that was an insane project just because from the very beginning, we knew that we had to tell the story of him. And what's important about Coach Jeffries for people who might be listening who don't know, he was the first ever Black Division I football coach in the country.
Right.
He's 85, I believe now 86. But he had such an insane impact on Orangeburg and South Carolina State, to which South Carolina State has 3 Super Bowl winners that came out of South Carolina State, and 2 of them were coached by Coach Jeffries. And so, interestingly enough, I got to interview 2 of them, Harry Carson, who played for the Giants, and Donnie Shell, who won 4 Super Bowls for Pittsburgh.
Man.
And what was really interesting too is that we got so much, we put so much effort into it because we wanted to tell his story and how connected he was and how much of an impact he had in his community, that I actually got to fly to DC and interview Jim Clyburn, which was pretty crazy too. Because at the time he was at the time and still is, he had a lot of pull in DC and still does.
Yeah.
And that was pretty wild to get to sit with one of the most powerful people in Washington. But anyway, I say all that to say, it was an amazing project just because of how much kind of leeway and autonomy I got to tell that story and get to those Super Bowl winners, politician, and then eventually get to the part that's the school, because he really did a lot to inspire his team and grow them as people as well as students. And we wanted to show how that translates to the values that we had at that school. So that documentary was about an hour long. We had a big premiere at
the Nick, right?
At the Nick.
Yeah.
And and they also are a school that shows it quite often.
Yeah.
And so that was a real ambitious project, and we've made like 3 or 4 documentaries since then.
Well, talk about, because the prevailing wisdom right now is that shorter is better for everything.
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
The prevailing wisdom is that people don't have the attention span for longer content, which I don't think is right. But I don't know. I mean, I think in some cases, if you're interrupting somebody to give them a message they didn't ask for, then yes, keep it short. But talk about long form storytelling in a world of short form where we are now.
This is something I could probably talk hours about, but the baseline of what I think when it comes to that is there's always going to be a place for like long form stuff, like my documentary stuff is very long. But even right now, we're kind of migrating a little bit more to if your message can be concise enough, it's much more effective to do short form, like something that's less than 2 minutes long. So I don't think it's the limit anymore, but there was a time when I was as I've been making like hundreds of marketing videos over the years for the Institute, where we would need to make all of our marketing videos less than 2 minutes, because at the time that was the limitation that Twitter had, now X.
Right.
And so now we're at a point where what's important for us is understanding how concisely and quickly can we get the message out, from a perspective to pull people to where the real story is. And what I mean is by pushing them to the web or pushing them to a contact form.
So short form leads them to long form.
Yeah, correct. That's like what I think. And realistically, like I said, it doesn't mean that there's no place for long form, but unfortunately, you're right. People's attention span is getting shorter and shorter, and the quicker that you can get the message out, the better. Because I mean, I think it was years ago I think someone told me that from a marketing perspective, you have like less than 4 seconds to get someone's attention. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to lose them.
That's right. Yeah, and that's why you should never open a video with "Hi, my name is."
Yeah,
that's it. You've blown your 5 seconds right there.
and to your point, I mean, when it comes to short form versus long form, it's not that I think I'm trying to ease back on what I'm doing with documentaries a little bit right now, because I think it's much more important to see what we can do as a whole communications team to serve what our schools need right now, which is more than anything is just enrollment. What's really interesting about charter schools is that we deal with significantly amount less funding than like a traditional public school districts, and they're still public schools. And so when students come in and out, it's really weird to think about it this way, because school leaders are kind of like business owners. When it comes to what we're dealing with funding, like kids coming in and out translates to what funding you have. And so they really want to take advantage of expanding programs that can best serve students. And the only way they can really do that is by increasing their enrollment to best serve the most amount of students, but also do the best they can to offer more programs. So the way that translates back to what you were saying about short form versus long form, I think right now we're trying to really shift our perspective to saying, like, what can we do the best to like serve as many schools as possible. So
I would assume because I've had a child struggle in public school. I mean, that's my son is now 22. He's out, but he struggled in public school. And so if I'm looking for help for my son, in whatever element, and you have to understand when I say short form, I'm thinking 15 to 20 seconds, right? Not minute and a half is long, right?
Yeah.
From a commercial standpoint, a minute and a half is long. And we can make it documentary style if it's a minute and a half, right? But I would assume that what I'm looking for as a parent is I'm saying I need to find someone who understands the predicament that I'm in. I need someone who understands what my needs are. If I'm in Hampton County, or if I'm in whatever, somewhere that isn't Greenville, Charleston, or whatever, how do I understand what my alternatives are? And I'm assuming that's what you're talking to in those minute or 2 minute videos, is like, we understand what you're going through and we can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and the cool thing about charter schools is that they're all very different throughout all the communities they have. So specifically in the Low Country, there's a school called Low Country Leadership Charter School that I'm doing a documentary on right now, but also we're doing a lot of marketing efforts for them.
Mm-hmm.
Their programs, they have a lot of programs there that are CTE based, career and technical education based. And a huge part of that for them is agriculture because they're in the Low Country.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have schools that are STEM schools. We have schools that are specifically college readiness, like collegiate schools, like Gray Collegiate Academy.
Right.
A lot of the ways that we deal with these short form marketing strategies is to figure out how we can just show people very quickly, hey, here's a need that's in your community.
Yeah.
Here are the jobs that are coming to your community. Here's a school that has some very specific options that can be best for your kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. And talking to the parents directly.
Correct.
Yeah. And honestly, that 5-second thing is so important, right? And so many people do not nail that. When they think about a hook, they think about trends. They think about trending audios and different things like that. But it's not like that. You have to get that attention and let people know it's for them, in the beginning.
Absolutely.
So I think that stuff makes a huge difference. From the perspective of telling stories about schools, is that because this is one thing that is never, like, I've contemplated this over the years, but like, you're basically telling stories in a similar way over and over again. How do you find because I've talked to friends of mine that get into one industry and they're just telling the story about the same industry over and over again. How do you keep that fresh? How do you keep that interesting to you?
It's funny because I feel like over the years I've learned I've realized like the mistakes that I can't keep repeating or the ways that I can't keep repeating the same structure. So like a good example is like, I used to always think every wedding video needed to begin with a drone shot, but that's not true at all.
Right.
You can't just continue to keep the same structure over and over again because storytelling is not necessarily formulaic, For me, it's really about figuring out who the person is you're trying to reach, number one. Mm-hmm. And number two is figuring out the story of like what story you're trying to capture. Is it a story about a school leader? Is it a story about a community? Is it a story about, a student? How are you going to use one of those stories to actually convey a message to your audience? And so it's really crazy because at the Charter Institute, at least the way that there are some things that we could do in our sleep, like make marketing videos because we can just regurgitate the same types of information. Just the same thing over and
over again, yeah.
But when it comes, we've been trying to shift a little bit more towards this art of storytelling in a similar way that we do with documentaries because we want to make an emotional connection. Because at the end of the day, probably the hot take that I have is that parents don't really care about finances. People don't care about legislative stuff. Parents don't really care. To some extent, they don't care about academics. But I mean, what they want to know is that their child is going to be really cared for in those schools that they're at. And so that's like the perspective that we have to go in is that we can really, it takes little effort to like do the same thing over and over again. The effort that I want to be able to take, at least as far as when we make marketing videos or storytelling videos, is like what is the way that we can just like really make the teachers, the students, the community, or the school leaders the hero of the story? And how can that connect to the audience?
Well, and the way we did it with weddings was always to say every family is different. Every family has different dynamics. Every couple has different dynamics. Even if it's the same. We had one year, I don't remember what year it was, but we had 2 Greek weddings within weeks of each other. They were both at the Greek Orthodox Church. They were both receptions were at the Marriott and same vendors. So same Greek band, because there's only one good Greek band. Same photographer, same videographer, same wedding planner. Like these 2 young women knew each other and basically had the same wedding, like 3 weeks apart. But they were so different because the personalities of the 2 young women were so different. And one was goofy and all over the place. And, she was, kind of wild. And the other one was very serious and very emotional. And it was like a big thing that her and her husband actually got together, and he wasn't Greek. And so it was this whole thing where she was trying to integrate this non-Greek guy into this family. And the stories just got to be so different, you know, and we realized after a amount of time that no matter whether it was the same venue, same people, same everything, the people are so different, you know?
Yeah. And I find that a lot with two things, which is school communities and school leaders. And school leaders really just set the vibe of the culture of the schools.
Yeah.
And like whenever I'm putting together the pieces, as long as I can focus on what that culture is at the school, you can really set the tone for what videos you're making, and how that can connect to your audience really quickly. I can think of two really quickly. Gray Collegiate Academy always does things insanely excellent.
Mm-hmm.
They have an unbelievable academic program as well as an insanely good athletic program.
Yeah.
Their sports program's really good. They're going to have a different marketing perspective than, let's say, one in the upstate that I've been to quite a few, which is Belton Preparatory Academy, because it's mostly elementary school kids, and they have a culture of like truly being a family. Like they will welcome little elementary kids outside of Caroline, like all the teachers dancing with music to bring them in and to give the kids hugs. And they actually stand up when they are like reached out to, or like stand up, when they are called on, and raise their hand, speak respectfully. They start every day off with like some inspirational school visits and live streaming from like a phone from their school leader. It's like a very different vibe.
Yeah.
And so if you can capture that vibe and really highlight the culture of the schools, at least from my perspective, that's how I can differentiate those videos really well.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you know, as we look towards, we talk a lot on our podcast about AI and about its effect on our industry, certainly. Because I think we're one of the most kind of fragile industries when it comes to AI. But as long as you're telling real stories about people, you know, it eliminates a lot of that problem, because you know there's no way to do that. There's no way to fake real people yet.
Yeah,
we will, but but not yet. And so I think as long as you can tell real stories, I think that's what really helps people connect. You know,
sure.
And people can tell the difference. They can see it a mile away when you're not being authentic. You know, so that's a huge one. So talking about Rachel, just real quick, what do you feel like the state of wedding photography is right now? How's that going? I've been out of it for a while.
Yeah,
this is what I call it. This is 3 years clean for me.
3 years clean. Yeah. That's such a great way to put it, because
I haven't done a wedding in 3 years.
So like I mentioned before we got on here, I don't do much wedding videography at all anymore. Yeah. It's like less than 5%. And we would only do it if someone was already using us as their main photographer.
Right.
Like that's the only way we would do it. We wouldn't do it by itself. And so the state of the industry is interesting right now. Like it's a weird place, because year to year, sometimes we just have weird, like people aren't getting engaged the same amount of time, like at the same time of year. So we'll have weird gaps of inquiries.
Yep.
I think people are rethinking their priorities about what their budgets are and how they can do things, because, I mean, from a business perspective, we have to remain sustainable with how much money we're charging and stuff. And
sure.
Some people just don't prioritize certain things anymore, like photography. It's weird. And so right now, I think the state of the industry is that we just need to work really hard on branding ourselves and marketing to the right couples, because they're still out there. And so I think that Rachel and I are really, there was a time where we thought about, you know, moving to a place like Charleston or Greenville. Not just to,
I think any of us in Columbia have always thought about that occasionally. Yeah.
It's not just just to be somewhere else and to like, and it may be like it would be easier for our business if we were there, but something that's been really great about at least for us, the wedding industry in Columbia, is that it is just full of super high quality vendors that care a lot about their clients. And that's kind of how we've always wanted to brand ourselves, is that we are a couple that does this business together because we care about marriage and we want other couples to know that. And we do a really good job of connecting with our couples and literally bending over backwards to help them. And I think that that's just like, for me, in Columbia, every wedding vendor I come across in Columbia, South Carolina, for some reason is just super high quality and just cares about creating good memories for their clients. And it's not that that doesn't exist in Greenville or Charleston, but at this point in time, after 16 years of shooting weddings, I've probably gotten to know every single one.
Oh, yeah.
They're all just really high quality.
Well, and the thing is, too, that in Columbia especially, we all know each other really well. And so we have it's almost like a family within, within the industry, right? And so I think that makes a huge difference. And we went to Charleston a lot. We went to Greenville a lot. We went to Hilton Head a lot, right? But they would bring us down there because they like the way we approach things. And
sure.
I think that's very cool. Well, I listen, I wish you all the best in the wedding business. I couldn't physically keep up with it. I'm older than you, so like my back would kill me at the end of the day.
And even now, Rachel and I are always curious if we're going to continue to do wedding photography forever, because it's still, as to your point, it's like, it's physically difficult.
Whew. It's a 12-hour day.
It is. On your feet.
Doesn't matter how much you're covering. It's 12 hours, so, well, man, Jacob, thank you so much for doing this. This has been really great talking.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
We end up every podcast with 5 questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to start off with, I am a huge fan of documentaries. Okay. What's your favorite documentary?
Oh, man. Goodness, that's kind of hard to choose. So my favorite documentarian is Werner Herzog. So,
okay.
So Grizzly Man might be pretty high up there.
Grizzly Man's pretty wild. That's a good one.
Goodness. It would probably have to be Grizzly Man then.
Yeah.
It just would have to be. It's either that or Into the Abyss, but Grizzly Man's is pretty up there.
Grizzly Man is just one of those set of circumstances that you go, how in the world did you just stumble on this and make a film out of it?
And what's really funny is he is a very interesting documentarian, because when you see the documentary, that's 90% of his footage.
Yes.
He shoots very low. He does not like to collect footage.
Overshoot. Yeah.
So it's weird. He's a very good guy, and he's a lot to learn from.
That's awesome. Favorite music or genre of music or band or anything like that? What's your favorite music?
Okay, so this one's really hard, because I feel like I just go through phases where I just like different types of music. I am a really big fan of the 80s rock genre.
Okay.
Pretty huge. So when I was in high school, I my guitar teacher, who still does this, he has a band called Hijacked. And I used to play with his band after we would spend a few weeks learning a song, and it was pretty fun.
Right.
I would play that one song. But now he's actually still playing with his wife and a bunch of other people. So that's my genre I like.
Jack's pretty famous in Columbia,
Jack is famous in Columbia.
That's awesome. Favorite season?
Oh goodness, that's easily the spring.
Okay.
Easily the spring.
Nice. I think mine is fall, just because of allergies.
Because
my allergies don't kick up in the fall, and it's that in between time and temperature.
Yeah, spring's also good because it's like we're ending out the school year.
Oh yeah,
and I get to and as it ends out, I love graduation season, and it's good to see the impact of the past year.
Well, and wedding season used to be my least favorite season. So like from March to November, that's wedding season.
Yeah.
We were always couldn't get anything done. Nothing else was going on during that time. So cool. Favorite dessert?
Oh gosh, that one is a tricky one, because I just don't eat as much sweets as I used to, because I'm trying to see if I can live to 100. I'll see.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Right? But I just like good chocolate chip cookies.
Okay.
I'm actually really good at making them, and I'm going to make some for a Thanksgiving thing at work tomorrow. And so
nice.
I use this magnolia table recipe from like a cookbook from like that show Fixer Uppers.
Yeah.
And it calls for 2 sticks of butter per batch, so it's like really sweet.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay once said that the secret to home cooking is more butter and more salt.
Yeah.
He said whatever you do, just put more salt and more butter.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, last one. What would your last meal be on death row?
Oh,
what would you request?
Oh, that one's a rough one. But probably a Denver steak.
Oh.
Very specifically a Denver steak, just because I've always thought it was really tender, and I like that.
What's a Denver steak?
So a Denver steak, there's 2 sides of a porterhouse. There's like the New York strip and the Denver, which is really I believe it's well, I might get that wrong, but Denver's on one side. I just know that. And it's just one side of the T-bone that's just really, really good.
Okay.
And I love it.
Might have to check that out.
It's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bill.